Welcome, everybody, to the Ring Generals podcast. I am Nick Nenad, and alongside me today is Easy-E, Eric Santos.
What's cooking, guys?
Guys, we got a good show for you today. A lot of interesting topics to discuss. A lot of topics that we don't really discuss that often as well. We are going to be getting into the world of MMA. We are going to be doing our usual UFC pay-per-view preview. That is of UFC 265, headlined by Derek Lewis and Ciryl Gane for the interim UFC Heavyweight Championship. Lots to discuss there. We will also get into Bellator. They had a big championship change, and there's been a lot of discussion about possible Bellator UFC crossover recently that we don't normally get to see, so we're going to discuss that a little bit. And then at the end of the show, we will jump into the world of pro wrestling and discuss the release of Bray Wyatt. Maybe the most shocking release of anybody of all these WWE releases that have happened recently. But Eric, how are we doing today, man? We got a big UFC week. A lot went on last weekend. Some crazy stuff to talk about. How are we doing today?
Doing good. It's been a hot weekend as of late. And also just to kick things off with the week, man, it's just getting hotter and hotter. Who knows? Maybe it's because SummerSlam is getting near, or the fact that this pay-per-view, UFC 265, is coming in. Who knows? But I think like this card does seem pretty good. Maybe a lot of people may have different opinions of the main event, but yeah, I mean, definitely everything's all good. And I think the weekend kind of like made things sour when we heard about the release of Bray Wyatt, but we'll get into that later on. So yeah.
Absolutely. And it also got sour because we lost a championship fight on UFC 265's card. Now, if you look at the fights happening, you have Jose Aldo on this card. You have a big Michael Chiesa Vicente Luque welterweight fight. You have a big Tesha Torres Angela Hill women's strawweight fight. You got Rafael Fiziev, who I'm labeling one of the best lightweights in the world that's unranked. He's fighting on this card. So a good card. Then, of course, you have the interim heavyweight championship, but we do lose Amanda Nunes. So that second title fight is gone. Eric, what was your thoughts when you first heard about Amanda Nunes and Juliana Pena's title fight not happening anymore?
It kind of lost a little bit of steam for this card. I would think that Amanda Nunes and Pena would have sort of in a way gave a little bit of spice to the pay-per-view card, not just have the main event, Derek Lewis and Gane. But don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of Lewis, but maybe they would have had more momentum having two title fights going in. But I think really the big one, what we're waiting for, is actually the International Fight Week, which is they pushed it back to a different time. I think it's September or October.
September, I think it's the next pay-per-view after this in September, yeah.
So next month. So that's what we're waiting for. This one is in a way like it seems to be it's pretty good, but I think the Amanda Nunes, her getting COVID, hopefully everything goes well, and who knows if that might be, again, this also plays in the factor of Pena, where she sees that as an advantage. So who knows how Nunes is going to come back from it. So it might be an overall advantage from Pena, or could this just make Amanda Nunes stronger? Who knows? But only time will tell.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you this. I agree with you. This pay-per-view definitely lost a little bit of steam. You now have a interim championship fight as the main event of a pay-per-view that costs $70. Okay, so it's a tough one for non-UFC hardcore fans to buy and understand that. Eric, I've already purchased it because I always purchase the pay-per-views. I won't be able to watch it Saturday Night Live as well, so I did have to purchase it in advance. But, I'm still down because, like I mentioned, there's a lot of solid fights still on this card. And Amanda Nunes, come on, we did expect to probably roll over Juliana Pena, probably win the fight pretty easily, and may even get a knockout early. So it wasn't like we lost, an amazing championship fight that was going to go either way and we didn't know what was going to happen. No, we lost the championship fight that we kind of know is going to happen, and it's just still inevitable. But yeah, definitely lost steam, like you said, to this card. But let's get into the card, and let's get into the main event, Eric, because we have this interesting interim heavyweight championship fight between Derek Lewis and Ciryl Gane. Derek Lewis has 4 wins in a row. Ciryl Gane, obviously undefeated, having defeated Jarino Rozenstruik pretty easily and Alexander Volkov pretty easily in his last 2 fights. Not a lot of experience for Gane compared to the 32 fights or 33 fights that Derek Lewis has. I'll give my thoughts on this first. It's an interesting matchup because you have obviously a pretty much only knockout artist in Derek Lewis fighting a very technical fighter in Ciryl Gane. Neither guy is big on takedowns. Obviously, one guy has a lot of knockout power compared to another that doesn't really have a lot of knockout power. So it's an interesting matchup. When I look at this fight, I see 2 things happening. One, well, first of all, it's a bigger octagon than normal. Obviously, Lewis and Gane have been fighting in primarily, smaller octagons since the pandemic started. And that helps Derek Lewis because everybody's a little closer to each other. You can't run away as much. There's just less room. Now we have the bigger octagon. I think that favors Gane, but that's only because of Gane's strategy of kind of jabbing, clipping the fighter, going in only once in a while to really strike the occasional takedown. Whereas Lewis, he's waiting for that big shot, as we saw against Curtis Blades, where Blades, I actually thought was winning that fight before Lewis just lit him up on a takedown attempt. So it's going to be a very interesting fight. But like I said, there's 2 things that were going to happen. I buried the lead there. One, Derek Lewis is going to get the knockout, and it's going to be within probably the first few rounds. Or Ciryl Gane's just going to pick away at Derek Lewis. He's going to avoid the big knockout shot, and he's going to win it by decision. Eric, that's how I see this fight going. It's an interesting fight. I don't know who's going to win at this point. I will give a prediction at the end of the segment. But what's your thoughts on Derek Lewis versus Ciryl Gane?
Yeah, I mean, no doubt you definitely took out the words out of my mouth. But yeah, there are 2 things that can happen in this fight. Ciryl Gane, he can go. I can see him go 5 rounds against Derek Lewis.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of evading and making sure he does not get clipped by Derek Lewis. We know how strong Derek Lewis is. Besides Francis Ngannou's his power, Derek Lewis also has got an enormous amount of punching power. All right. Derek Lewis even said that he feels inexperienced. He doesn't feel like he's, like a top ranked guy. But Derek Lewis, he's been just taking people left and right, taking down Blades, Volkov, so many others. And so, yeah, I mean, Derek Lewis, he definitely, if he's not careful, if he just keeps Ciryl Gane for 5 rounds, I don't know how Derek Lewis will be, if he's going to get tired with Ciryl Gane, because Ciryl Gane would just be evading and just running around circles around him. Who knows? I mean, Derek Lewis, he said that he hates doing cardio. So Ciryl Gane, he'll probably just see that as an advantage. But Derek Lewis, if I was him, I'd probably have to put him away quick, like in the 2nd round. If I was Derek Lewis, just having that raw strength power, and and also this is also whoever wins, Lewis or Gane, they're 1 step closer. And I'm looking at the top rank at the rankings, and I see Stipe Miocic number 1. So winner goes up against Stipe Miocic.
Well, Eric, I disagree with you. This is for the interim heavyweight championship.
Interim.
Technically the championship, but I agree with you. Like, I don't think you're just saying this for no reason. We all know Francis Ngannou was the champion. Francis Ngannou was unable to fight for whatever reason, and now we have an interim championship. That's why we have interim championships. It's to keep the UFC's ability to put on big-time fights. I have no problem with Derek Lewis versus Ciryl Gane. I just kind of wish it wasn't for the heavyweight championship, because I think both guys kind of needed one more fight before they needed a championship shot. And like you mentioned, why is nobody fighting Stipe, who is the heavyweight, who's the longest reigning heavyweight champion?
Yeah, he's like kept in the dark. He's like kept.
Yeah, and again, maybe Stipe's still in tomorrow or still in next week after getting knocked out by Francis Ngannou, right? So maybe that's why. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that, obviously it's a weird interim fight, but yeah, technically the 1 step closer is being the heavyweight champion. But go on, continue with what you were saying.
I mean, the only thing really, Derek Lewis, he seems to be like the heavy favorite in this one. Ciryl Gane, really the only thing that he can definitely win is by decision. That's how I see Cyril Gane winning, and Derek Lewis, how he can win is putting him away quickly. That's just, you know, maybe it might be a little bit hard for him to put him quickly because Cyril Gane, he'll try to evade as much as he could. So yeah, I mean, I can see this going to the distance. So it's a perfect matchup for Derek Lewis, and yeah, I mean, can't wait for it though.
Yeah, no, I'm excited too. I want to continue to talk about this fight because there are some other factors into it. Obviously, you have, Derek Lewis's ability. He's been in a lot of main events. He's been in a lot of big fights. He's been in a lot of interesting fights. He's seen it all, right? And he still has the most knockouts of any heavyweight. He's tied for the most knockouts ever for heavyweights in the UFC. So with Cyril Gane, though, he does have that legitimate cardio. We've seen it now 2 times in a row with his fight against Rosenstruck and his fight against Volkov. With Volkov, though, he took some damage. He really dominated that fight in a sense. That was what was really impressive, and I think that's why the UFC gave him this shot. He was the number 3 ranked fighter going into that fight, but only at 9-0. I wonder this, Eric, and I'll ask you this question. There's going to be a big crowd. It's going to be for Derek Lewis.
Houston.
This is Cyril Gane's first big-time ass fight, right? This is his first big-time fight. His other fights were all on fight nights in the non-COVID era. His only big-time fights, the fight against Junior Dos Santos and his 2 main event fights, have been in, either an empty arena or the Apex. So again, there is a big moment that Cyril Gane has not seen before. He has not been in this environment. How much do you think that affects both fighters, Derek Lewis having the experience and Cyril Gane not having the experience?
Hometown advantage for Derek Lewis. Absolutely, it's going to work in the favor for him. Cyril Gane, he's going to have to be ready for a crowd that's going to boo him, or I'm pretty sure he's going to have some cheers, but the majority of the crowd, they're all going to be behind Derek Lewis. So for sure, like I said, I can see why Derek is the heavy favorite in this one, and there's more advantage to him in not just him having the crowd behind him, but also just seeing how much skills and how he has improved as a fighter. So yeah, I mean, Cyril Gane, he's in for a huge rude awakening when it comes down to the crowd. So who knows? I mean, it's definitely going to be loud, that's for sure. So hopefully Gane is prepared.
It's going to be interesting. So here's my prediction for the fight. I think that the moment and the inexperience in Cyril Gane will play a role. And I think the experience for Derek Lewis will play a role. And I think Derek Lewis gets a big knockout in round 3. I think it will be a slow first round, maybe even a slower second round. And I think Derek Lewis will get it done. Cyril Gane has the cardio. Again, with a crowd, with the energy in the arena, it does take a little bit out of you. Derek Lewis seems like he doesn't give a shit about any of that stuff, right? And he doesn't care about the press conferences, and he doesn't care about anything. He just goes in there. He has a new leash on life now, wanting to be the champion. He has a chance to technically be the champion. He has the right to say Francis Ngannou technically ducked him coming into this fight. So he'll take it personally, and he'll want to win this championship in his hometown. It'll be interesting to see all the press conferences, what his mind is going in this fight. But I think nonetheless, Derek Lewis gets it done. He wins in a knockout in the 3rd round. Could happen earlier, but I think the moment will be a little bit too much for Cyril Gane. Cyril Gane will be there again. He's a physical specimen. He has all the talent, but I just don't think he's there yet. And I think it's Derek Lewis's moment in Houston. So I'll go Derek Lewis, round 3 knockout. What about you in the main event at 265?
Man, I mean, at first I'd want to say Cyril Gane would win, but who I'm leaning towards is Derek Lewis winning this one. I can see Derek Lewis wobble him and try to corner him as much as he can in the first round, and then before the bell rings, they go back into their corners. I can see Cyril Gane is having a little trouble, have a little trouble, and Derek Lewis is this close on knocking him out, and then that totally plays in the favor for Derek Lewis. And that's when he has the mindset, okay, second round, this is where I put him, when I put him down, and where I'm leaning towards is the second round, Derek Lewis by knockout.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, very similar, right? I mean, it's gonna go two ways. It's gonna be a decision, or Derek Lewis is probably gonna get a knockout. I don't see there any way of Lewis having a decision win. I just don't think he strikes enough, and Gane's production is too much. Now maybe Cyril Gane turns into what he did against Jurinho Rosenstruck and just doesn't throw enough, quality strikes, and Lewis gets him a couple times. Maybe Lewis gets a takedown, something like that, and that's the way he wins by decision. But like you said, the cardio is not there for Lewis. He'll try to win early, and I think he'll do that. I think the moment will be too big. But yeah, very interesting. Like we said, Eric, and let me just go back to the card really quickly one more time. I looked at a bunch of stuff on my computer, so now I got to go way back. Yeah, the co-main event is Jose Aldo versus Pedro Munez. We have Michael Chiesa versus Vicente Luque, Tesha Torres versus Angela Hill, Song Yadong versus Casey Kinney, and then we even have Bobby Green versus Rafael Paziz as the preliminary card main event. So a lot of good fights on this card, even though we lose the Nunez Pena fight, and even though we don't have a technical real championship fight. A good card, and Eric, I know you and me will be watching. Now, speaking of a big-time fight, we saw a big-time fight this past weekend in Bellator, a really high-profile fight that happened at the Forum here in Inglewood, here in Southern California, and AJ McKee, who was the hometown guy, gets the win. Maybe foreshadowing, Eric, UFC 265 in Houston, right? But AJ McKee gets a very impressive first-round victory over Patricio Pitbull. He gets a giant win. He's now calling out every featherweight in the world. He's technically the champ. He wins $1 million. Eric, what's your thoughts on this big Bellator championship? It's one of those championships that's really held in high ranking because of the fighters that fight for it in Bellator compared to some of the other weight divisions. What were your thoughts on AJ McKee, and then all this talk about a possible Bellator UFC, kind of combination, right? A switchover, right? Where we have maybe McKee come over to UFC. I don't know how that's possible. What's your thoughts on all this? Interesting stuff here.
I mean, AJ McKee definitely submitting freaking Patricio. Man, that one was just a bloody war. And one way to go out, with the guillotine. Man, I got to say, that was really impressive. And him calling out anybody from the UFC 1 Championship, PFL, doesn't matter. Man, oh man, he's definitely got, a lot of eyes on that. And that also just puts up the, the open possibility to have crossovers. I can definitely see Bellator, because Scott Coker, he looks like the kind of guy who would definitely be open to work with anybody. At this point, we can probably see that at this point, maybe Bellator is like the closest thing we're going to get to in terms of wrestling AEW, where maybe Bellator could be, in the world of MMA, the forbidden door. So in one way, shape, or form, somewhere or another, and also we did see Khabib in in Bellator, right? Didn't we see him in the backstage?
He's 3-0. I think he's undefeated as a coach. It's amazing.
Yeah. He showed up with Bellator, with a Bellator T-shirt. I'm like, wait, what? What's going on around here? And then that's just, again, as a wrestling fan, you kind of wonder what was going on. What the hell? And then, but seeing this as like a partnership, anything is possible at this point. They can definitely be open to like the small organizations like PFL 1 Championship or Combate Global. But with UFC, I mean, you're just gonna have to leave it up to Dana on this point, because really, I think UFC is like the number 1 right now MMA brand as of right now. Like they're the version of the WWE. So it just depends on them. I know Scott would probably be open to him, because just by seeing the number of elite fighters in the UFC that they have in their roster, and that would be one hell of a crossover. I mean, I would definitely love it. In the world of wrestling, they can do it. Why not in the world of MMA?
Yeah, well, and what's interesting is obviously this fight was for the featherweight championship. Patricio Pitbull still has the lightweight championship. Yeah. So it's kind of an interesting thing where they didn't fight for both titles, because it was obviously the featherweight Grand Prix. But I think when you look at the Bellator, the top champions are AJ McKee and Pitbull. So the fact that McKee dominated Pitbull so much, it is the only way to go. is, okay, well, I guess I could fight Pitbull again because it's a big fight, but really, hey, Max Holloway, get these hands. Hey, Alexander Volkanovski, get these hands. Brian Ortega, get these hands. I mean, Brian Ortega and AJ McKee, they're both from Los Angeles too. So, and the inner city as well. So there's a rivalry there. So, it's just an interesting thought process. I think it's the only division in mixed martial arts that could have a crossover. I think, Francis Ngannou destroys Ryan Bader or Valentin Madovsky, right? I don't even think Vadim Nemkov is going to end up being the light heavyweight champion by the end of the light heavyweight championship Grand Prix, right?
Yeah.
You have Mousasi. He's a very impressive middleweight champion, and you have a Mozov as a champion as well at welterweight, and then obviously Sergio Pettis, but Sergio Pettis didn't even last in the UFC that long. So that's the thing. I think that when you look at this featherweight division, when you look at the lightweight division and what Michael Chandler did and all that stuff, I think it's possible that you have AJ McKee maybe beat a UFC top fighter. Now, will that ever happen? Absolutely not. I mean, Dana White will not even pay his fighters more than Jake Paul will pay to have them box him, and he's a YouTuber, right? So do I think it's ever going to happen? No, because Scott Coker needs the UFC. The UFC doesn't need Bellator. But damn, Eric, would I be down for an AJ McKee versus anybody fight? Really anybody. The guy's amazing. He's fantastic. I
mean, now that you mentioned Jake Paul, since he's been talking about a lot of these MMA fighters have been getting underpaid, he's kind of lately he's been kind of coming off as of right now telling Dana White, saying that, hey, Dana, I know you guys don't like me, I know you guys hate me, but if there's one thing that you should consider is that why don't you guys pay your fighters the same amount of money that they pay me? And then Dana's like no, like, don't even listen to that guy. But then all of a sudden other fighters are like this, they're like, hey, Dana, I don't like this guy, but where's my fair share? Like, where's my money? And then the other guy's like, yeah, I don't like this guy, but where's my money? Like, where's the? And then Dana's like, no. I'm telling you guys, you guys either work for me or you guys either just, get the hell out of here. And he's like, no, you guys, you got to pay me my fair share, And then I think that's why Jake Paul, he kind of started something in a way for like other fighters to start questioning on their pay and how much they should make. But back to Bellator. Really, the only time when the cross promotion ever happened, in fact, was actually they were this close. Came in back in the early 2000s when the promotion let out Chuck Liddell for the Pride Middleweight Championship. Middleweight Grand Prix. And then in 2017 when they co-promoted the money fight with Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather.
Exactly. So it's possible, right? It's possible, but I don't know if AJ McKee is a big enough name.
Yeah.
He's 26 years old, though, Eric. 26. That's a lot of years to possibly have something happen. And I'll tell you this, too. Like, I just due to work outside this podcast, I wasn't able to watch that Bellator fight between McKee and Pitbull, but I tried. I tried to watch it. It was a big-time fight, We weren't able to record last week just due to scheduling, but, we would have talked about that fight coming up. And that's why we're talking about it now, because – look, what's happened. It's the first time we're having a legitimate Bellator UFC talk. So I'm down to watch AJ McKee, and maybe the UFC will lighten up. Do I believe it will happen, though, Eric? Hell no, it ain't going to happen.
Right? I'm going to try to be fair on this one. Maybe the only way that UFC can get their minds changed is if you need, a big-time star like Conor to say that, hey, look, I'm going to do this whether you guys like it or not. I'm going to go fight some dude from Bellator, and then I'm going to be representing UFC. I'm going to do it whether you like it or not. I mean, that's the only way that could, it just depends on a big money fight and also just a big top superstar. You know, maybe like Conor or somebody else, but that could be the only way. But as of right now, I don't see it happening.
Yeah, it's an interesting discussion. It's why we're talking about it on this podcast, but likelihood of it happening, not much. Congratulations, AJ McKee, UFC Featherweight Grand Prix champion and Bellator champion. I just screwed it up. Maybe future UFC champion. All right, Eric, let's switch topics. Bray Wyatt has been released by the WWE, plain and simple. Something that we did not ever expect. I just was reading a tweet by Mick Foley where he stated, I'll get the exact quote on it here because it's a good one. He said, with WWE's release of Bray Wyatt, the company has lost a true visionary and a creative genius, one of the most innovative makers of mayhem pro wrestling has ever seen. Eric, I don't think anybody else could really describe it more than that. It's pure disappointment for me. It's puzzling. I don't understand why they'd release one of their top superstars, a superstar that makes them money, that has good merch, that's a fan favorite, that the fans gave so many chances to, even though the creative around him didn't make any sense. You know, I think with Bray Wyatt, when we talk about Bruce and we talk about Vince and we talk about all those other shitty writers for WWE, Bray Wyatt was the #1 example. Remember, Eric, Goldberg, beating him in Saudi Arabia for the World Championship. Remember, Seth Rollins essentially murdering him on live TV. Remember, Randy Orton lighting him on fire and then beating him normally at WrestleMania. All of that was not Bray Wyatt's fault. We asked him to step up. He didn't, and now he gets released. What's your thoughts? Bray Wyatt's released. I'm disappointed. What about you?
I mean, it's very easy to pinpoint and finger point at Vince and obviously the writers. I'm pretty sure they also take fault at this, but we also kind of look at this whole thing, this problem, and I remember all four of us, we may have discussed about Nick Khan's involvement, because this kind of doesn't sound like, in a way, Vince, because there were times where he was, investing in the character, but then again, it just makes me wonder then all these releases that are happening, and they're still going to continue with more releases. They are going to keep saying, oh, it's because of COVID, because of budget cuts and this and that. Well, if they're talking money, if they're talking budget cuts, then that also meant that they're bringing in guys like John Cena. They're also bringing in guys like Goldberg. They're bringing in celebrities like Cardi B, and they're bringing in The Rock back. And I'm wondering, how much money did they give to those celebrities / wrestlers, just to make sure that they would make an appearance? And then in a way, they're asking, all right, we're giving you guys this money, but in the process, we're going to be cutting some superstars along with that. So I wonder how much money they gave them, and then they started cutting on the other wrestlers. That's my question right there.
Eric, you bring up an amazing point, right? It doesn't make sense when they say they're cutting the budget and then they're bringing back fucking John Cena. They're bringing back Goldberg. They're bringing back potentially The Rock. You're right. They're lying. It's like they're saving. Maybe they're not lying, but they're just not. It's not making financial sense. You're cutting Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman to sign a guy that's going to be around for maybe a month or two. Maybe shows up at WrestleMania and John Cena. Obviously, they have a contract for Goldberg, so I won't throw him in there, but they're paying him a lot for nobody to want to fucking watch him wrestle. And if they're bringing in The Rock, he's probably on a Legends contract, but they're going to have to pay him multi-million dollars, maybe tens of $1 million to return. And that's the release of all these other guys. The Aleister Blacks, the Braun Strowmans, the Bray Wyatts.
Andrade,
for one guy that's going to show up and never show up again, it doesn't make sense, right? And it shows that WWE's creative identity right now is, we don't know how to build stars, so we're just going to bring back the old ones, and we'll see how long this lasts. Eric, I'm going to throw this out here right now. It's going to last until this year's WrestleMania, and that's it. I honestly think that once this bullshit with John Cena and The Rock, which I'm excited about, okay, but it's not necessary, and it needs to happen, correctly. Once all this bullshit with The Rock and Roman Reigns and John Cena ends, AEW will be winning the professional wrestling war. By late 2022, 2023, AEW will be the top pro wrestling company in the world. They will have Aleister Black, Andrade, Cody Rhodes, Sting, probably Bray Wyatt, Orange Cassidy, Jungle Boy, Darby Allin, Adam Page, Rusev, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, maybe AJ Styles.
MJF,
right?
yeah.
MJF, exactly.
Christian Cage, yeah.
Maybe Chris Jericho. I don't know if they'll have Chris Jericho at that point. But, you know what I'm saying, Eric? That's a fucking good roster. When you look at WWE, yeah, it's Roman Reigns at the top. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch Seth Rollins and Edge probably fight each other. But, like, how long's Edge going to last? Right? He's not going to last. So that's my idea. Nick Khan, who probably will be the leader of WWE, and I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, and I'm leaning bad because of what they're doing strategically. I think in 2023 and possibly late 2022, when John Cena and The Rock are not in the picture, AEW will be the top pro wrestling company because of guys like Bray Wyatt getting released. Do you agree or disagree, or do you have a different opinion on that?
I'm split 50-50 because if WWE is just going to keep doing more releases, because without a doubt, what they did for this year's WrestleMania, after WrestleMania, they cut more wrestlers. Okay, yeah. They released like 6 or 7 wrestlers, and they kept going. And then last year as well, in 2020, after WrestleMania, they also released a number of wrestlers as well. So I guess we're going to do like this annual releasing wrestler after WrestleMania. So don't be surprised on one of your favorite wrestlers that you see, or someone's getting over right now that's getting a lot of momentum and they're behind them, and the guys in the back, they're like, that's right, cheer on this guy, because as soon as the clock strikes midnight after WrestleMania or whatever pay-per-view it is, we're going to kick him out. And then either one, maybe in a way, I think McMahon's like this, like telling Nick Khan, you sure you know what you're doing? Like, oh, yeah, don't worry. I know what I'm doing. As far as AEW goes, by that time, I think a lot of the guys, we're probably going to have a new champion by that time. The pay-per-views they're going to have more pay-per-views, more sellout pay-per-views. It looks like All Out, the tickets spiked due to the fact that the ongoing rumors about CM Punk showing up and Daniel Bryan showing up. They're getting their hopes up for this one. So, a lot of things are happening in AEW, that's for sure. So we're going to be seeing more WWE guys appear at AEW. Being number one, I mean, for their network, yes, but as far as like beating the top company up north like WWE, it's really hard, because WWE has like shareholders and they're like $1 billion industry, and how much Peacock has invested in the WWE. It's just how much money they have put in the WWE to be like this global product that is sports entertainment that they, in a way, help shaped. And, they can always bring back any wrestler that they want. And, it's just how WWE, how the machine that WWE operates, that they're willing to run over anybody if they choose to, compete or not. But, I guess in a way, like, I think AEW will have their victories, but as far as like the number one wrestling organization going, the networks are going to try to do whatever they can to keep WWE on board.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think that obviously when you look at USA, when you look at NBC and Peacock, and you look at Fox, you're right. They can keep WWE alive. I just think in the fan sense, AEW would be the top company, because like I was mentioning, Jared.
That's the people's. That's the people's wrestling organization.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. It already is, but it's going to be even more, because think about this, Eric. And you mentioned a great point. Who's the next guy that everyone loves that's going to be gone, right? Nobody would have expected Bray Wyatt, but he's there. When you look at pro wrestling, and this is going to be a long lead up to the final thing I say here, but when you look at pro wrestling, who have the fans wanted to return since 2014? CM Punk, right? Who did the fans really love to watch in high profile matches? Daniel Bryan, right? Who do the fans respect and love his performance? Aleister Black, Andrade, right? Kenny Omega, right? AJ Styles, he's WWE, but I'll throw him in there, right? Bray Wyatt, right? Creatively, Bray Wyatt, holy shit, right? People love Rusev. People like the Young Bucks. They love MJF as a heel. There's one more guy that's a big time guy that is set to have his contract up after SummerSlam this year. It's Adam Cole. Imagine Adam Cole in AEW as well, along with all those guys. You think Adam Cole's re-signing with WWE, seeing that the creativeness of when guys come up, you look at Keith Lee and Shinsuke Nakamura and fucking Karrion Kross, what they've done with Karrion Kross. It's right. Like, they're going to have Adam Cole, CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, Sting, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, Andrade, Aleister Black, MJF, maybe Chris Jericho, Adam Hangman Page. Jesus Christ. Like, that's the top 10 guys. You take AJ Styles out of there, those are the top guys for fans.
Yeah.
And they're all in one company. So you're right. Maybe WWE holds on to being the number one financial company, but I mean, I'm telling you, man, the fans pro wrestling company is going to be AEW after WrestleMania this year.
Yeah, and this is coming from a company that says we're like the most financially stable company, but yet they're doing budget cuts. They're doing budget cuts.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Budget cut. We had the biggest year ever last year. We got a budget cut. It's all bullshit, Eric. It's all bullshit. But Bray Wyatt will be in a better place. He'll probably go to AEW. He'll do amazing stuff. He's never been the best in-ring performer, so it'll be kind of interesting to see how he flows with guys like Kenny Omega and, even Daniel Bryan and CM Punk and people like that. But yeah, nonetheless, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. And I just think WWE's, they're dropping the ball, and I'm ready to watch it, right? I'm ready to watch them drop the ball because I haven't believed in a lot of their content in a lot of years. Yeah, has their content stepped up a bit since the TV has started up again? Kind of, but AEW is talking about Daniel Bryan and CM Punk.
Yeah, and potentially all these signings coming in.
Yeah,
right. We're going to see more
Bray
signings.
Wyatt in 90 days, right?
Yeah.
So it's,
and the Forbidden Door. The Forbidden Door is they keep promoting on
It's
Impact.
swung wide open, Eric. It's swung wide open.
Jeez.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing. But yeah, guys, I mean, that's all we had to talk about today. Me and Eric can always flow with the best of them. We get some UFC talk. We get some Bray Wyatt talk. It's good. I want to use the last portion of this podcast. Guys, we will be at SummerSlam. We will be in Las Vegas for Errol Spence and Manny Pacquiao. We will be there August 20th, 21st, August 19th. We will be in Las Vegas covering those events. Like, comment, and subscribe so you can see what we're going to be doing. We're going to be vlogging. We're going to have interviews. We're going to be filming the shows. We're going to be talking about a lot. We're going to try to be involved in both events the best we possibly can, too. So follow us. Get ready for that. We will be, on the podcast road up until then. But that week, you got to be ready. And after that week, we're going to have so much content. We want this to be a deal breaker in the podcast world, right? We want this to generate us into the next sphere. We want to meet you guys that are following us. We want to meet the thousands of people that watch our podcast every week. We got 2 weeks ago, we got over 7,000 views on another UFC video. So it's really impressive. Yeah, thank you so much. Over 10,000 views in the last 2 podcasts and all the content we've released. So yeah, it's been great. Eric, you want to talk a little bit more about SummerSlam weekend as well? What for the fans to expect?
Man, a lot of wrestling promotions out there. There's a GCW event from what I know.
Right.
Yeah, be sure to check out those indie shows as well. Not just GCW, but I'm sure some of them are going to be in the area. And you may never know who to go there because, I mean, if Nick Gage can be in AEW, then so maybe somebody from GCW can show up at a big event like AEW or WrestleMania. So you may never know. And I mean, that's it. It's what else is out there, man? Boxing, MMA. There's also
so much.
Fight night is happening that weekend. Yeah.
We also have Jared Cannonier versus Kelvin Gastelum.
Yeah.
We'll be following that too. It's going to be a fun weekend. It's going to be a fun weekend. We got 3 events all on one day, happening in the same city. It's going to be madness. And we will be there. And we'll be having fun as well. Don't get us wrong. We're going to be having some fun in Las Vegas. RK James was dancing last night. He's getting his dancing shoes on a little bit early here.
Oh, wow. Damn.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And Eric, I cannot wait to be in Vegas with all of you guys. And I can't wait for you guys to watch our next content. We'll be back next week, probably talking about the interim heavyweight champion, talking a little bit on the road to SummerSlam and just what to expect from our big trip coming up even more. But for this podcast, we are done. Once again, I am Nick Nenad, and that is Eric Easy E Santos. Eric, take it away and finish this podcast and stop.
Stay cool out there, guys. And as always, raise a glass in the sky and salute the Ring Generals.